So, a very good afternoon to all of you. We'll start the next session. And I'd like to invite the expert panel, Dr. Praveen Krishna, Dr. Mahipal Sadev, Dr. Deepak Meghur is here. Can we request you to please sit in the front seat? Dr. Radhika Natarajan, Dr. Revati, Dr. Sujata Mohan, Dr. Bhaskar Srinivasan, and Dr. Swapna Nayak. So, can I request Dr. Deepak Meghur to please join me over here, please? I'd like to invite Dr. Srinivas Joshi here, Dr. Harshul Dutt. Dr. Harshul Dutt, can you please join me? Deepak, come on. Hey, got you. So, we would like to begin with the first presentation, which is by Dr. Rohit Shetty, Refractive Surgery Clinic, Instilling Energy and the Schedule. Dr. Rohit Shetty needs no introduction at all. He is a very well-known scientist, clinician, ophthalmologist, and he's been revolutionizing the whole scientific outlook of ophthalmology, not only in India but globally. And we are very honored and we welcome you, sir, for this presentation on Refractive Surgery Clinic, Instilling Energy and Schedule.
Thank you, sir. And I do have work with companies who might grant proposals, but they don't have a direct link to the presentation what I will discuss today. So when you look at building a refractive practice, these are the 5 AIOS you look at. One is to accept, adopt, adjust, academics, and how you build your own aura. There are a lot of youngsters here. This does not apply only for refractive, it applies for every practice you want to build it. The first thing which is important for all of us to believe is that refractive surgery as a subspecialty. We don't look at it as a subspecialty. I do only refractive surgery. Today it's accepted, respected, but when I started 18 years back, first 4 years I was doing everything. Then I stopped. It was considered that, oh, you can't operate cataracts, so become a refractive surgeon. That is the biggest challenge. We have to adopt to that change. Then, with the demand space, time, most important is in between doing DALs or PKs, you do 1-2 LASIK. That doesn't work. You want to make it as a growth. And for that, you need space, you need time, and you need to spend efforts. Because multitasking has a different challenge, because the type of people you get refractive is totally different from a cataract, because they are already seeing 20 patients, 6x6 patients, and you have to make sure that the next day morning they go back with the same vision as they had with glasses or contact lenses. Adopting new technologies, I think, apart from, I don't think any other branch of ophthalmology has so much of technologies other than what we see in refractive surgery. The reason is to be a differentiator. And a few points from it, we have to keep investing. Investment is the only way to grow. Some do give you return on investment on your money. Some gives you return on investment because it becomes a differentiator. And there are tangible and intangible measures to look at the growth. There are times you buy something and you really don't know in the initial few years that it's going to give you returns like biomechanics and all this mapping. But at some point of time, they start becoming the biggest differentiator you haven't had. And once you reach one stage of practice, then you have to really look at what else you can do. And you have to look at that there is no box. So one of the things, simple example is, every time we can't depend on what is currently available. So what we did was, this is a simple example of building our own machine. We had a lot of time during COVID, so we sent somebody, engineers and scientists work during COVID. So we built this entire polarization sensitivity university, the only university which looks at the complete, every level, every layer of 1 micron from the cornea, and we are able to image the collagen itself directly. And these things happen because you start thinking from a different perspective. Dry eye, and again, this we started in 2007. So we had to be ahead of the curve. Refractive is all about how fast and how quick you are able to pick up things which could be the future. And that was the biggest differentiator for us at that point of time. So many times this is a gamble because at that point of time investing on all this was a big risk because most of them did not even have a distributor in this country. So then comes the therapeutic. Then people start associating your practice with this, and then they start believing in something. Then ultimately your other practice also starts growing. Then you have to infuse people to take out of box when you reach, because if you're looking at your practice as only a number game, then there's only one way to go. I would call it as a more of a horizontal growth. But when you start looking at it from a vertical growth, then you start thinking more and more. And this was one of the biggest inventions in the last 10 years for us, the only known kit which is the clinics now, which can give you a 90 minutes, a complete cytokines in your film. We have at this point of time around 9 or 10, but I think over time we should have more. Then customize it, get new machines. Like I said, don't think about how much am I going to return. If you keep looking at your balance sheets and financial statements, they'll never work. Then people start noticing you. The companies which would probably never come to India for FDA trials came to me and Dr. Maipa Sachdev sir, and our data got the CE and FDA, the 501 just last week. It is the first time the data for FDA for a machine of this standard was generated from an Asian market. And we have many such examples of it. Adjust to the changing scenario. Most important adjustment is patience, mindset, the behavior. How you explain every 2-3 years we go back and look at our counseling. And your counseling, what you started 10 years, is not the same because patients behave, the concepts are different. Every time I get a complication, or I might say, or I listen to one of my friends here getting a complication, I add this to the consent form. Dr. Harshul is here, that once we discuss about the CTK. Then that day I realized that we did not have a CTK. It is 1 in maybe 10,000, but it was not there. We added. My consent form is 3 pages now. But I tell them every single thing, if you're transparent, this is the most important thing in a refractive clinic. It goes pages and pages. You can look at this. We have orthotics, we have binocular single vision issues, muscles, exercises, you name it, it's there. And everything has an individual consent forms. And whether you're doing cross-linking, no cross-linking. And most important thing is, I give the consent form on the day I meet my patient, and they have to sign it here that they have collected the consent form. So it's a very important thing because they will tell you that you have 3 pages of consent form, I did not have time to read. So every single patient, I don't care whether they get it done on the next day or after 1 week or 1 month, 6 months, but they have to sign and it's documented in my file. So it is important that you create this, build a very good social media circle. Refractive patients enjoy social media. They enjoy about yourself. They enjoy to look at the resources. That's what they do. Unlike cataract patients where they go by, my son, my father has got it done with you, my mother has got it done. They don't care here. The mindset is completely different. Work on your Google. You have to push people to ask for reviews. And always, there are people who say this is the worst hospital. It's okay. I never take out my review. If they say I'm the bad doctor, you look at Apple, you look at the best of machines. Do we have everybody saying that is the best machine? No. I never take out my bad reviews. I tell it, let it be there. If it's only bad reviews, it means that you have fudged it. And all this brings you to the Academics is important. The training, what you know, has to be imparted. And some of my residents and fellows are here. It's just not about learning the art of refractive surgery. You should know the science of refractive surgery. Art is very easy. It's an easier surgery to pick up in the world. An optometrist can do it. The science is what makes you to make the refractive surgery much more beautiful as we move on. And as I said, now we're even entering into the era of gene therapy into this. Publications encourage people to write, publish, and take research seriously. Finally, have your own aura. Refractive clinic cannot be copied. What works with Dr. Radhika or Dr. Kasturiman will not work for me. And the biggest reason many refractive patients is you don't have your own aura. And these are all factors which you need to be considering, because when you have your aura, you instill pride in working. Your staff feel that they're doing something great. And aura is contagious. If you have it, the staff will get it. If that aura will go back to yours, the attendant boy who picks up your file. Be like the lotus, trust in life, go through the dirt, believe in new beginning. And this, I think, is the most important take-home point about building a refractive clinic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rohit, for that wonderful presentation. I have seen Narayan Nethralaya grow from where it was to where it is right now. If you would have to attribute one major thing which helped you really bring Narayan Nethralaya to the level it is today, what would that be? I know there are multiple factors, but what would your one motivation be for the audience?
So I would say only one thing: accept change, and don't be rigid to change, because you don't know at that point of time whether it will work, whether it's good or bad. 99% of us fail because we judge something based on our ecosystem now. I judge something because something is not working there, so it will not work for me. Or I think overthink too much. If you are accepting change and also respect everybody who's trying to make a change, then without your knowledge, you will go to a different level. That's the only point.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Maipal Satdev sir at the expert panel to this session. And now I'd like to request Dr. Harshulda to invite the next speaker too.
So it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Maipal Satdev sir. We'll be speaking on how to stay in the forefront in refractive surgical specialty.
Thank you, Harshul. Thank you for Thank you, Satyajit. Well, I'll be talking about how to stay in the forefront of the refractive surgery. My first history with the refractive surgery was in the days of RK. Never was convinced about it, but did do a couple of them. Thought it to be something which was imperfect. Obviously, we are seeing all the problems that we talked about, the Russian way and the American way, the bug study, etc. But then came in the examiner, and that really changed things and went into it as early as 1998. And from there on, one has to look at, and I think Rohit just put, change has been a constant in the field of refractive surgery. So, if you ask me as to how would one remain in the forefront of refractive surgery, these are a couple of my topics. So, first thing that is most important is that you need to be constantly learning, because this is one field which has really come in and exploded, though there has been a little stagnation over the last couple of years. But there has been obviously the talk always of coming on to perfect hematropia, and also talks of supervision, which really we installed the first dioptrics machine way back in 2000. And at that time, the apprometer was not giving in, so I would say at that time it was garbage in, garbage out, in the sense that we were getting overcorrections in the dioptrics, etc. But then over time, the customization has come, and now every company has its own customization. But what is very important is that you need to actually, if you have to grow, you have to have your roots to be strong, and for that, continuing medical education is something very important that we need, because there is so much of science and there is so much of technology that is there in refractive surgery that you need to know that. This is just a quote from Margaret Fuller, which if you have knowledge, let others light their candles in it. So you should then, I would say, share your knowledge, and with sharing knowledge and discussion, you do get a lot of things. Now, what is very important, as I said, is that there is a lot of optics, there is a lot of physics, and there is a lot of science that is involved in all the machines, because here the machine does majority of the work, you don't do majority of the work. You have to give an inputs, which I think AI is going to help you for some time, wherein nomogram establishment, machine stabilization as to individual machine calibration is something important that is there. So you need to understand about the internals and meet the developers of technology. If you have the wherewithal to be able to talk, because majority of the work is being done either in Germany or in the US, if you can meet the developers behind the technology, that is going to give you an insight as to how deep they are thinking about the technology, how that is going to work, and how that is going to affect the outcomes. That is most important, that what it brings on the table. There may be something high-tech that people may be talking that this is going to track at say 1000 or 2000 hertz. Does it really matter that it's going to track that fast? Is it really going to make a difference in the outcome? So you need to know as to what exactly there is. And as I always believe that you have to get out of the comfort zone at times. People think that there is an investment which is unwise, because say when Smile came in at that particular time, people said that it's so expensive, each procedure costs a lot of money, and why would people want to say it's the same when emulsification came in? People said, why would you want early rehabilitation? I still remember newspaper articles saying that people are prepared to stay. Why do they want to get iris chapping, you get moon burn, you get nucleus drops, etc., etc. But now it's a standard of care. So that is where you have to get into the magic, where you have to get into the comfort zone, and you need to keep on going, because there is going to be new investment that's going to come, and if you don't keep growing, that's going to be a problem. Now, I would say that at times we look at perfection. Perfection is something that is achieved only by a very, very small percentage, but what suits majority of the individual population, that is something which is very important, and that I think the first thing that comes is your scientific knowledge that you have put, and ultimately a mission of what is your gut feel. I don't know how many of you have read the book called Blink. So it is something that it comes like this, that well, this is what over thin slicing of your brain, that this is something that's going to work. And if you have to be in the forefront of technology, you may at times have to be brave and to understand that this technology is going to deliver. It may not be perfect at that time, because no technology is born perfect. It is always an evolution that happens, and that is why you have to see that perfection will follow, but be brave at that particular time. And the potential that is there is going to be something very important, that the performance of what is the outcome is going to be what you have to do. Now, I'm giving you an example that we have played with technology, we have been in front of technology. When Zyoptics came in, I think every big refractive surgeon in India purchased a Zyoptics machine. Did it deliver? I would say maybe not. But it did go out, but then customization came in, and then came in the Smile procedure, which again I felt at that particular time. And today, even if you look at majority of the big refractive surgeons, they all have Smile, and they swear by Smile that it is those who are doing it done. And then suddenly we found something called as Cornea coming in, which was nothing but old wine in new bottles. It was just a customized, that kind of pulled the rug under you, because the company invested so much in the digital marketing, because things have changed so dramatically. It's so much of it that patients come, and even though I'm 65 years of age and I say that I would still prefer doing a Smile over Ventura, I had to buy Venturas, because that is the kind of thing how you have to stay ahead or not. It's not offering anything great at all. It's just any customization. It gives you 6. So you have to understand, and you have to perform as per the market conditions also to stay ahead in refractive surgery, which is there. So you need to look at the opportunity cost. So whether buying a Contura of 3.25, 3.5 crores was a wise decision or not, I think it is a wise decision, because the number of smiles are increased. So because the patient comes to you, you tell them, no, this is better. Then what happens is that they think you are making a lame excuse because you don't have that technology. You tell them that, well, I have put the technology, this is what it is, and then the patient feels that you have. So that is where you have to stick your around. At times you have to make investment. May not be sensible, but you have to. Now, what is also important is that for younger people and for us also, you have to go ahead and do fellowships, etc. Don't be just somebody in the entire crowd. You should actually be scared of getting lost in the crowd. You should be standing out. If you have to, he just spoke about NN. NN has established saying keratoconus. So they are considered to be the gold standard of the final word in that particular thing. So you need to, if you are to stay ahead in the game, you need to do a deeper penetration, become super specialized in that particular thing, and don't get lost in the crowd. So that is something very important. And what is also important is that in today's world and in today's game, wealth is the fuel for growth. If you are not able to contribute by creating wealth in refractive surgery, it's a lot of people put in a basic machine thinking that we have a great cataract practice and we are going to do well in practice. That doesn't work. You have to have a mindset and you have to have people who are dedicated, who are going to do refractive, and wealth needs to be created, and that will be the growth. And you need to invest in technology, in the ambience, the way patients are coming in, the way patients are moving in, having a staff or dedicated counselor. We have a separate thing called as Planet Classic. So that is something where you have to expand, and you need to keep on exploring that is there. And ultimately, I will say that you explore beyond your limits. Refractive surgery is fast evolving. You came in, ICLs came in, we started doing ICLs in 1998. We have seen the growth of ICL again. At that time, it was should we venture into it or not, but this you have to be able to complete the armamentarium. One thing is, any patient coming into your clinic should not have just one procedure fitting onto the eye. It is the eye has to be seen in which procedure fits in best. So you have to have technology where you can do all the procedures that is there, and you have to do the ikigai, that is where everything merges, what you are paid to do, what the world needs, what you love to do, and what you are great at. That is something that I feel professional talents, personal passion, higher purpose, vocational fulfillment, and professional talent. This is the Japanese word ikigai, which is where you keep on improving and you keep on getting the ultimate success that you want. And attending conference workshop for the right reasons and sifting out what is bad, what is good out of technology is going to keep you ahead in refractive surgery. But ultimately, you have to embrace new technology. That is my mantra. Technology that works at times, like I never went into conductive keratoplasty, but a lot of people burn their fingers that it's something that's going to be the future. Because I studied it thoroughly and I knew that the cornea is plastic. It has a plasticity. It will reverse back from where it is. So wherever the new technology is going to work, you have to go and embrace technology and make sure you back the right course as to, for example, I have no financial interest, but I knew that this is a technology is not the right cost for people to back, even though people have, but you see very little noise. And that's the technology for there in cataract surgery for you to back. So getting to the top is not easy, but staying there is more difficult, and that is something very, very important. Don't be complacent in refractive surgery. In refractive surgery, you have to get the best technology. I'm again stressing because refractive surgery is high technology. It's really the highest technology that you have, which is there in ophthalmology, and it costs a lot. And therefore, you have to invest and do financial modeling as to how that will work. So, to sum up, staying at the forefront of refractive surgery requires a commitment of a refractive mindset. A refractive mindset is totally different from a cataract or a retinal mindset. That is a necessity, this is a desire. These are two different things. You may live with glasses or contact lenses. Getting a refractive surgery is optional. But you can't live with a retinal detachment or a ARMT or SRLPM or whatever, and you can't live with a cataract. So therefore, you have to be in the forefront of refractive. You have to be commitment to ongoing education, staying up to date of the latest advancement, and embracing new technologies which are there. I would say again stress attending conferences, workshops, reading journals and publications, engaging in continuing education and collaborating with colleagues is very important when you discuss at a personal level. That gives you a lot of thoughts and then also the essential strategies to stay relevant and provide the best possible care in refractive surgery. And by implementing these tips, you will remain, I would say, at the forefront of refractive surgery. There are very few, there is a lot of consolidation that has happened as regards refractive centers. People know that these are refractive centers. The era of giving kickbacks, etc., is going out of the window. You have to project yourself as a refractive center, giving everything under the sky which is available in the world, and that is going to keep you forward and get the best outcomes. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very inspirational, very motivating talk. So one thing which I wanted to ask you, you began by saying that you have seen days from RK to smile. In another 5 to 10 years, I think a patient is going to come and tell you, I looked into my webcam and artificial intelligence has told me that probably that you now smile or whatever. How do you motivate the audience to be ready for the next 5 years where artificial intelligence is going to take us by storm and a lot of the things will be outdated?
I think you are saying the audience, the world is not prepared at the speed at which artificial intelligence is growing, because there was a meeting held last month in which they said to slow down artificial intelligence because the people who are working for artificial intelligence are seeing that it is growing much faster than they are anticipated. You go to ChatGPT today, you can have essays, these slides can be made by ChatGPT. So we'll stop putting in our effort on that. Actually, they make slides and everything for you. So artificial, the way is that you will go to malls. They will do a picture for you. Artificial intelligence will tell whether you have diabetic retinopathy, ARMD, etc., and walk in, walk out like you have. Maybe photo dispersion, photo aspiration, or whatever of the fake 3D imaging, everything is coming in. I think what is there in technology is that what happened over the last 2 years is going to happen in the next 5 years. That is the speed at which technology is rapidly growing.
So you are a visionary, sir. All those things that we are talking about are going to be a reality. You really think so?
110%. There is no way that we can escape that. And half of us are going to be obsolete.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation, sir. We would now like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Somshila Murthy, who is a senior cornea specialist from L.V. Prasad Eye Institute. And she will be talking on the framework of surgical training program in cornea, the best foot forward. Dr. Somshila Murthy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sinha, and my thanks to Dr. Chitra to be in the session. I see that there's nothing to teach the trainers. It's not teaching the trainers. It's more like sharing with trainers. And Dr. Chitra asked me to talk about cornea fellowship program. So I can already see at least a few cornea specialists here. Right. So when we think about how to structure surgical training for the cornea fellowship, can you do slideshow?
Takes this 2 years of it and it can be distributed as well. Type periods like this complete the studies and complete in practice initial in the semester.
Can you close that? sorry, so I'll cut down the time even further. Yeah, so obviously it cannot be just a purely formalized learning system, and it will have several components when we talk about surgical training, but we have to make sure that clinically they know what they're doing. Academically, the surgeons are oriented. I don't know if it's true for most youngsters, but when they join surgery, is exactly what they want. They literally join before surgery and they wait for it and they get disappointed if they don't start operating. Not to blame them, but we do have several components of every surgical skills training or every fellowship program. Certainly, the cornea fellowship program. We want them all to become good doctors. So that means they should have the three H's, or the so-called the hand, the head, and the heart. All three should be well trained by them. So observation, of course, cannot be the only means of surgical training. On the other hand, we have to make sure that they get to do a lot of hands-on, because if they don't have the experience of hands-on, they won't have the dexterity or the insight, and that will be ultimately detrimental to patient care. So we have to balance between just letting them observe versus giving them adequate hands-on training. So it should be systematic, safe, supervised, and that is how we can have a best foot forward, as Dr. Chitra said. So, what is the expectation versus reality of the youngsters who come into the program? Most of them expect that they would have, well, we expect that they would have some amount of clinical, academic, as well as research. But what happens in reality is that a lot of most of the programs are devoted very much higher towards clinical and very much lower towards academic or research. But this is the ideal balance would be something like this. The first one that I'm showing you, where they have about 50% clinical and about 25-30% academic and about less than that 10-15% research in a very busy fellowship. So ultimately what happens is that the main thing that suffers, takes a beating, is research followed by academics, and what most of us have in fellowship, about 70, 80, 90% would be the clinical stuff, which includes both the outpatient as well as surgery. So they come in with expectations of a lovely picture, but actually the reality is that it's something different from expectations. So how to match that? What we have in our system is we have a 3-year fellowship model which has 3 components. The first 9 months is to get everybody to a basic level of training, because people come from different residency systems. So at least the hands should be good. So the cataract surgery and basic surgical procedures and all other branches, what they should know. The next 12 months in the second year, we have several secondary centers in our system. These are high volume, basically cataract surgical centers. So the fellow goes there, gets a lot of wisdom about how to run a center, how to be the manager and chief surgeon of that area, and of course gets to be a high volume cataract surgeon. And when they come back in the last 15 months, that's when they come into the Cornea fellowship. So they already have a strong surgical component from before. So the fellowship typically for us has an academic session, a lot of clinical work, assignment research, and again clinical work, because after the day again they have to go back to do some more work for the patients who are to get ready in the next day. So it's very busy in that way. The model that we have for assessment, I think earlier speaker talked about assessment, was that we have a centralized model. There's an education academy which does the basic onboarding for the initial months, including wet labs, diagnostics, etc. And they have a complex way of the fellow giving feedback, assessing the fellow's outcomes, in which they ensure that the fellow improves. That is on the centralized model that we have, because it's a big institute. But on an individual level, what happens is at the service level is that we work with the mentorship system. So although there will be a head who is overall in charge of all the fellows, but each fellow, or maybe 2 or 3 fellows, will be paired, who are at different stages, will be paired with one doctor, and that doctor is the mentor. And this is, we feel it's the best way, the mentorship model is the best way for the fellows to get the maximum surgical training. And we also make it a point to match the mentors and the mentee, because sometimes they are too different in terms of, say, culturally or whatever it is. And again, this model will fail, so that's an important part. And our step ladder is, of course, I mentioned they're already proficient in cataract surgery, and we take them through all the minor corneal procedures. They keep doing that, and simultaneously the wet labs, so they keep practicing the suturing for corneal transplants and so on. So corneal trauma and minor corneal procedures is how we get them into learning about corneal surgery. So this corneal surgery itself, which is the key component of the fellowship training, is a step ladder approach where we start them on transplants, where we start off with therapeutic transplants. Although surgically they're more challenging, but then for reasons which required, because that's the kind of only case where we can let them train to start with. We started on therapeutic transplants, and because the stakes are not as high, and then DSEC, which is an easier way to do transplant, is probably the next. Then we bring them back to the optical transplants and complex procedure like the triple with the cataracts, combined with cataract surgery. And lastly, we take them on to DMEC before they leave. So this is the step ladder approach that we follow for corneal transplants. Of course, there's several challenges. There's a lack of time for the mentors or other faculty to train them. There's lack of space because the ORs are restricted, the resources are restricted, and then there's the faculty commitment, because it is an additional output for them, is also going to be different. So then, of course, there's always a patient factor to make sure that whatever we do has to be very safe for the patient. And obviously, the patient willingly will not subject to having the newest of trainings train on them. So that has to be very, they just start with small bits, small steps of the surgery for a new trainee, and the suitability, the case should be suitable for a trainee to learn. So how do we incentivize the faculty? There is no way. We've tried with monitoring, whatever way you try, you cannot incentivize faculty or seasoned trainers. The only way to do it is that they have to have a deep sense of ownership. Only then this model will work. So the surgical training, the actual keys would be that the trainee first observes several surgeries, next scrubs in, and also gets, when they observe, they scrub in obviously. And then the second step is that the surgeon is sitting by the side and every step is demonstrated, as well as a few steps are done, so that is complete assisting. Then there's a supervision where the surgeon is scrubbed, but he sits by the side and the training keeps operating, and the surgeon only takes over in case of problems. Then there's a standby where we don't scrub, we stand by their side and we're around, and we don't scrub it because we're confident. And lastly, it's independent where they can do their own cases. So that's the step ladder for surgical training success. Ultimately, the goal is to create the next generation of great surgeons, but not at the safety of the patient, and also it's the reputation of the institute. Ultimately, we want great corneal surgeons coming on from our institute. So I'll take this chance to plug in. I'm not campaigning, but I am campaigning for a uveitis meeting that's coming up, and this is very, it's in Abu Dhabi this year, so I welcome if any of you are interested to join this meeting. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Dr. Sidhu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Sushila. From all the training programs that we have been doing over the years, if I had to ask you one thing that you would want to add or change in your program, what would that be? And my second question is, do you actually have a training the trainers program in LVP, or only training the trainees program?
Yeah, so there are two things I want to add. One is training the trainers. So that's one thing that maybe having more formal programs and discussions with the trainers. And the second thing that we would want to add is having a separate OR to train surgeons on corneal procedures. We have separate ORs, training ORs for cataract surgery, which is quite common in many places. But we don't have a training OR for procedures for corneal surgery. That would make all the difference. So there's more resources in training, like space, all the paraphernalia that go in the machine and so on, as well as surgeons' time to assist them. So those are the two things.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So I'd like to invite our next speaker in this session, Dr. Vanati N, who is a senior cornea professor at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, RP Center, and she'll be speaking on periodicals and assessment. Dr. Vanati ma'am, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sajini, and think it's a little difficult topic to speak on, especially when you're looking at periodicals and assessment with relevance to Cornea fellowships here. So I also learned a bit, and when I did a little bit of digging to really see what is going to be more relevant as a material to talk on periodicals and assessment with relevance to Cornea fellowships. No financial interest in anything during the mention of this, during the course of this talk. Yeah. So what one needs to look at when you are looking at any medical fellowships. So in particular Cornea, because that's my field of interest here. What do medical education fellowships commonly provide you? They provide you training in teaching. They provide you how you learn to assess what you are being taught or what you are doing here. You also learn about the program administration and also look at the scholastic or the scholarship facilities which can be offered in any fellowship program here. So this is how you would comprehensively look at a fellowship program. So how would you go about assessing a particular program when you want to probably be part of the program, or you're trying to pick out a program for your kid or kid here? So there are two ways of assessing many programs here. You assess the competency of a fellow who's undergoing a particular program here. So that is assessing the trainee here. The second aspect is assessing the efficacy of the fellowship program itself, meaning assessing on the whole the program itself or how comprehensive it is in terms of catering to the needs of the fellow. So there's a great variability among the programs which are available when you particularly look at Indian programs, the scope and content, the extent of the training here, and expectations regarding clinical competency which one acquires while going through a particular program here, be it clinical or research here. When you look at assessing competency of trainees or fellows of a particular program here, what we need to know about is the core knowledge, how much we learn in patient care, the procedural competencies, the research competencies, and also looking at the administrative and business aspects of practice here. So what is the longitudinal impact of fellowship training? So you could assess it by looking at the descriptive statistics on the program characteristics here, meaning what is the in-depth offering of a particular program here. You can look at the particular employment history of fellows who have undergone or gone through the particular fellowship, those who have been able to assume leadership positions after the particular fellowship here, awards and scholarly activities. So these would be descriptive statistics based on which you could probably assess a fellowship program here. When you look at what do fellows commonly acquire or how do they go about their training, there are two ways. You look at the clinical work you do and the research activity associated with clinical work, and the other is the pure research activity itself here. Clinical work largely for fellows becomes component research of what their mentors are doing, or they could do a standalone research by themselves depending upon their field of interest. When you're looking at research activities here, largely it is a self-motivated research reading which is going to be guiding them and make them learn more here. But they can also work as research assistants simultaneously, and a large amount of learning comes through optimal research writing as well here. In research reading, the challenge is identifying the right kind of publications which is going to add on knowledge, because there's a multitude of literature which is available for any particular subject here. So one of the ways which is commonly adopted when you're looking at periodicals in fellowship training is the journal clubs here. I think due to the lack of time I would not go into much deliberations regarding this, but when you look at journal clubs, they help you to improve your critical critique skills here, which means you learn to critically analyze a particular research article which is being presented to you here. You're also keeping yourself up to date on a particular subject or a research which is there in a particular literature which is being published here. You're also able to translate what evidence is available in literature and guide it and take it to clinical practice here. And one main thing is it keeps you in the habit of reading scientific literature. So that's very important to put us, and so that we don't become redundant in whatever we are practicing in. There are several formats of journal clubs, the traditional formats, the evidence-based formats, the innovative flipped journal club formats, the virtual online journal club formats. I think this is all available for wide reading wherever you want to look at it. But by and large, each of them have their plus and minuses here, and each of them, the components of learning are really huge and do help you to take you forward in many ways here. So that's how you could apply periodicals to your particular fellowship training here. But the need of the hour and what is perhaps coming in most of medical training here, be it residency or fellowship training, is developing what is known as a CBLA, or a competency-based learning and assessment program. I think parts of this is already being incorporated by the Indian government in the MBBS training now here. But I think we would also need to think about reaching out and incorporating it as a uniform protocol to the various fellowship programs which are being offered across the country here. The main components of these would be the training program itself. What are the components and the characteristics and the logistics of the particular training program? How would you go about assessing the efficacy of the program and the fellow who's trained in the particular program, the learning that is achieved, and the management aspects of this? I think this is a fantastic article which I would urge you to read upon, and it talks about in greater elaboration on all these four arms of the system here: teaching, the teaching system itself, specialist training system itself, and how you would assess both the students and the trainer in a particular system, and the management aspects of these particular arms of the CBLA here. So that's something which would really take our fellowship training programs at par to international standards of top level fellowship programs here, and that perhaps would also bring in some code of uniformity to what we are having in our current existing fellowships. With this, I close, and thank you for your patience there.
Thank you so much, Manati ma'am, for the wonderful presentation. One of the things which I wanted to know in your hospital, where you have a postgraduate also, where you have a junior resident, senior resident, you have fellows. So once you are going around taking classes, how do you actually train? How do you differentiate between training all this? Do you have separate training programs for each of senior resident, junior resident? Or?
Yes, we do have different teaching programs and various formats of teaching programs in terms of didactic teaching here, then clinical bedside teaching, operative room teaching here, and where you also teach them in different aspects, not one particular aspect. So if you see, the undergraduate training classes are separate, their competency-based skill assessment and those timings, and those we have a separate roster for that. The roster for teaching, didactic teaching for our postgraduates is particularly different in terms of teaching which is faculty teaching based, in terms of teaching which is based when we encourage them to participate in seminars, and that helps them to develop their thinking skills, their presentation skills, their assessing skills of a particular clinical question which is being posed to them about the subject which they have to discuss. They are also trained in how we have to assist in particular cases, and they also undergo a structured surgical teaching program in terms of, if you think about any particular surgery, starts with cataract surgery, they undergo a certification on all the steps, after which they are given hands-on on humanized training. So
I think RP Center is the only center in India where you give a certificate for the surgical skill also. Somebody who passes
before we allow them to handle humanize, we know that they have acquired a certain amount of competency in terms of doing the basic steps here, and that helps us to decrease the amount of intraoperative problems which one might face, and it also does not adversely affect the morale of a surgeon who's a surgeon in making, because you do, I think, understand when you have a lot of mishaps during your training period, you tend to be underconfident in particularly developing those surgical skills, which is not something which we want.
Dr. Manati, do we have any umbrella like AUPO in the US which would, make sure that there is uniform imparting of is there any scheme?
I think in India it comes only as a governmental advocacy, and I think even for example, if you look at NABH, it's not a governmental advocacy. And I think you're well aware there are a lot of people who are against the NABH norms as well. And they say, why do I have to take NABH? Why do people come around? So it's a form of an advocacy Only if it comes from a governmental setup and makes it mandatory is it going to be uniform. Otherwise, it's going to be largely an initiative of the training center to adopt a particular protocol, and perhaps better it can enhance its own performance. That's perhaps what we are seeing currently.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We would now like to invite our next speaker, the last speaker for today, Dr. Kasturi Bhattacharya, who is a well-known oculoplastic surgeon at Shankar Dev Nethralaya, Guwahati. And she will be talking on participation in state, national, and international forums. Dr. Kasturi, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sendaji and Dr. Srinivas, and to Dr. Chitra for having me in this program of cornea and refractive surgery. So when we talk about a cornea and refractive surgery, like my previous speakers have been mentioning, that it is basically designed to train the next generation leaders in the field of cornea and refractive surgery by providing a rich academic and clinical environment with multiple research opportunities and the career mentorship. So this has all been covered by the previous speakers. And today we know that this is one of the very sought after specialty by the postgraduates in ophthalmology. So they need to choose a program which is really well formulated with good number of surgical volumes and case diversity, which Dr. Shumashila has already mentioned. So what does one expect from a cornea refractive fellowship? We know that we want the enhanced training in the different corneal disease. We need to expose to the state-of-the-art cornea refractive surgery opportunities to treat all endosegmental problems, including the cataract. Most important, the adequate opportunities for conducting applied and clinical research. So though I do a lot of orbit and plasty, so after my first fellowship in orbit and plasty, I had a second training in cataract and refractive under Sir Gilbert. And when I was doing the training under him, he always mentions the importance of the state, national and international conferences. And he always mentions the state, attending those conferences, whether it may be a state, it may be national or a very big international, it really adds much more to your training program. So that is what I believe is very important. But what we see that in the modern era, there are very several avenues to sharpen the saw, which we have seen the old generation, they read the blogs, they listen to the podcast, they watch the YouTube videos, they attend the webinars, and many of them think that why do we bother with the time and expense of a conference? So that is also a very important question which has come in many of the young generation. But what I believe it is important to attend the conference because it really adds to the knowledge bank. There's no substitute for live events and the unique career building opportunity, particularly in the local settings and the current classroom curriculum. So what I feel that these conferences really enables ophthalmologists, both fresh out and also the seasoned stalwarts, to keep up to date with the important research, to learn directly from the experiences, the trials and errors, to share the best practice, and all of them definitely have a direct impact on the daily services. I just want to mention that we have done the fellowship way back, 18, 20 years back, but I feel that attending every conference is so important so that it keeps you up to date what is happening in the present scenario. So about the state conference is very important because we really get a chance to network with the local colleagues. And the most important is that you get a platform, this boost your confidence, helps you identify you amongst the colleagues. And this really helps nowadays because in many of the state conferences we have seen there's so many wet labs, the skin transfer courses, and life surgeries where every student, a resident fellow, that gets an opportunity to present the case, the posters, the videos, etc. The national forum is important because here you come to a bigger forum, you learn from an expert, you also get a chance to present your research to a larger audience, and also one of the best examples is the All India Ophthalmological Society Conference, where you can see so many beautiful programs have been conducted. Like this time we have the Teachers of Tomorrow program, we have a special video symposium, the guest speakers, and then we have the different capsules, the cataract capsule, the cornea capsule, the refractive capsule, the OPS, the court martials, and the most important, this time they have also come with a conclave on the cruise. So there are multiple exciting programs, but every program adds to the knowledge, and it is very interesting that most of the programs you have the knowledge with the fun. So there are different ways for the residents to show their work, to get the different awards, which really boosts your confidence. And it's very nice that every day becomes a learning day for each one of us. So international is about the global advances, what is happening, what is the avant-garde technology that is happening, what is the breakthrough in the ambit of ophthalmology research, clinics. It really builds international connections. There are different international conferences. But what I believe that what do international conferences actually add is basically they add to the professional networking. They help you choose and to know what are changes happening in the technology in relation to healthcare. You can meet a different types of the person that you want to. You get an opportunity to showcase your work, to project yourself, and also a chance to travel, have some entertainment, and catch up with friends and colleagues. So we need to maximize the benefits of each conference. We should use the chance to network. We should choose the right conference. Most important, we should get a chance for professional visibility and get the most of it. But the question today lies in how to choose a conference. There's so many conferences going around at the same time. So you need to decide the goal of attending, whether you want to keep up with the update, whether you want to connect with your vendors or network with the colleagues or friends. Review the conference program, the endless speakers and the topics of research that are being discussed. Take feedback from the colleagues who have attended it previously, weigh in your budget, and then make sure that you have enough time for it and doesn't jeopardize what is your current practice. And the best way of networking is look for people with similar professional interests. Utilize the social events in a conference to sneak a meeting with the idols. You can also, what I believe, there is no substitution for meeting someone in real person. You can also go for live tweeting the conference in a way to connect with the other attendees and also use the opportunity to meet the vendors and interact with them about the new products. And how do we have a professional visibility? The best way is to take active participation. I usually ask all my residents and fellows not to sit at the back, always to sit at the front bench, which most of us do, so that we can make an active participation, we can discuss what is happening, make your presentation very catchy and encourage the question and answer session. So I feel that attending the state, national and international conference really helps you in the development of your career growth. We know that there are a number of sessions happening in different time of the conference. It's very overwhelming, but we should not overextend. We should not try to cram too many sessions because it becomes counterproductive. We need to attend the session that matters most to you. Take thoughtful notes. These notes can help you remember the important points that which help you in the later practice. And in some case, it is also important to buy the recorded session if you hope to refer back to the session at a later date. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kasturi, for that wonderful presentation. Of all the conferences that you have attended, state, national, and international conferences, generally, what did you feel? Where did you benefit from most? Either way, either from gathering more knowledge or sharing, exchanging more knowledge. Which of these conferences you would guide the audience to attend more? Like national conferences are better, state conferences or international conferences? Because you have been a star in the international conferences all over the world.
I feel the AIOC is a very nice conference because simultaneously so many programs are happening. There are programs for the residents, programs for the vendors, programs for the teachers also. So I feel that every student, every resident from the first year onwards, that is what I have done. Before I became an ophthalmology resident, I started attending AIOC. So I feel that is the best for all the residents and the fellows. Once you know what is happening in your community, in your country, once you're sure that you're well trained on, then we should try for the international conference. And if you ask me which is the best, it is definitely the American Academy.
That's what I was going to ask you, because people are bombarded with so many conferences these days. If you had to attend one conference, in that given year, which would be that conference that you would want to attend? AIOS, AAO, or AFCRS, or which one?
I would like to attend AIOS.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Kasturi. Next, I request Dr. Sheetal Brar to please note the presentation. Yeah, to answer Dr. Satyajit's question, Dr. Kasturi Madam, I would like to say that for the students, especially for the postgraduates, I think definitely they should start participating in their state conferences first, in their own state conferences. And once they do that, then you can go ahead and do the AIOS conferences and then go for the international conferences. So, and secondly, once they attain the fellowship, then the subspecialty conferences are of more importance. So, as a postgraduate level, attending the state and the AIOS conferences then definitely would bring them a lot of knowledge. knowledge because most of the subspecialties are covered and as is needed for the exams for the postgraduates. So next we have the last talk of today's session on fellowship program in cornea and refractive surgery. So Dr. Sheetal Brar is here. She'll be speaking on the refractive surgical training program, how it unfolds. Dr. Ramu, do you have any questions to ask the speakers?
क्या और नहीं खोल रहे हैं कोई बात नहीं अभी नहीं थैंक यू
We have time. Respected chairpersons, dear friends. So today I'll be talking about refractive surgery training program, how it focuses on cornea. We don't have a cornea.
To begin with, we would like to welcome Dr. Sheetal Brar, who is a senior consultant in Bangalore, and she will be talking on refractive surgical training program, how it unfolds. Dr. Sheetal Brar.
Thank you sir for the introduction. So we don't have cornea fellowship as of now, so I'll be talking about how the refractive surgery program unfolds in our institute. So friends, you may agree with me that refractive surgery is one of the most lucrative branch of ophthalmology, and this is mainly because the procedure itself generally is considered as a fast and easy procedure, as being LASIK or SMILE or PRK. Most people think that it's a plug and play, and results are very good. Results are instant, especially with LASIK and SMILE, and you can earn more. The revenues earned are much higher compared to other types of refractive surgeries, and also patients are quite happy and grateful. Sometimes, if the refractive surgery does not go well and there is a problem, then you can have unhappy patients also. Patients can put bad reviews, you can have other issues, litigations, etc. So, the current status of refractive surgery as of now, what I feel is that it's evolving more towards practice rather than an interest in the formal education. So, there is less formal education in this field which is available, but it's going more towards practice because everyone thinks that it is easy to learn and then they just buy a laser and then start the procedures. But actually, a lot of people do not get formally trained in refractive surgery before starting refractive surgery career. Residency training programs do not really include refractive surgery as a subspecialty. However, refractive surgery, as we all understand, is the end point of all the processes, all the other surgeries that we do. Now, every surgery has a refractive aspect to it. The cataract surgery, corneal grafts, retinal surgery, glaucoma surgery. So eventually what matters to the patient is the refractive outcome of the procedure. So it is very important to understand the basis behind refractive surgeries and the various procedures. So this was a recent article which was published, and Professor Arthur Cummings, he
mentioned this, that now it is time for refractive surgery to become its own specialty. And there is a need for formal training, supervision, and qualifications in this field. And basically, the surgical techniques are evolving and there are shorter learning curves. But the theory which is underpinning the refractive surgery is actually quite vast and complex, and this is what needs to be understood. So, in order to gain exposure to refractive surgery, you can have either a long-term approach or a short-term approach. So, long-term approach basically involves long-term fellowship programs, which could be 12 to 24 months as part of cataract and cornea fellowship. So, most of the centers in India do not have a pure refractive surgery fellowship program, as far as I know, anywhere available. It is either part of the cataract refractive surgery cataract fellowship, like in our center, and some other centers offer as cataract cornea or cornea and refractive. So, but usually you can get good exposure to these long-term programs, fellowship programs, and sometimes some places outside India actually they do offer refractive surgery fellowships for 3 to 6 months, and we are also planning to start one because a lot of doctors who are already practicing cataract surgery and they have completed fellowship, they want to learn refractive surgery as a proper specialty with proper observation and all that. So this also could be a good idea to have an exclusive refractive surgery fellowship. As far as short-term approach is concerned, this could be observations, refractive surgery, workshops can be attended, pet labs at conferences. So I'm sure at AIOC also must be having pet labs for basic and smile, and also collegial approach where you discuss with your colleagues and learn from each other's experiences. So personally, I feel that long-term fellowships are better because they offer structured training, which is a step-by-step approach to learning the subject. So it also gives you an opportunity to learn from highly experienced refractive surgeons, which can be extremely beneficial. And for this, definitely you need a mentor. So how do you choose your mentor? So when you look for a mentor in refractive surgery, be sure that he or she is the one who can provide instruction and guidance in all aspects of refractive surgery. So you cannot call somebody as a mentor in refractive surgery who is just doing PRP, okay, and doesn't know about the flap procedure or intrasomal procedures or phakic AIOS or presbyopia procedures, right? So you should choose such a mentor or a center where all these kinds of procedures are being done routinely. Okay. Also, he or she should be active in research and should be well known and has contributed to the field. Now, in our center, we have this 18-month fellowship program in refractive surgery, and this is divided into 3 phases. The first phase is, so this is again, as I said, part of the cataract program. So the first phase, what we do is that we post fellows for 6 months each. So in the first phase of 6 months, the fellows get familiar with the basic procedures and the equipment. So they are posted in optometry and also in the refractive surgery workstation area. So for the first 6 months, they are just doing diffractions, observing diffractions, and observing the preoperative workup of refractive patients. Because this is, I feel, the most important part of refractive surgery: planning, choosing the right candidate, rejecting the wrong candidate. So this is something which they need to learn first: reading topography maps, abrometry, biomechanics, etc. So the first 6 months is around the equipment and the preoperative workups. The second part, also in this phase, they also learn to take history from the patient about their occupation, existing conditions, medications, etc., and also understanding their needs and expectations, because this is a completely different field. Okay, here we are dealing with very young patients who are 21, 22, right? Who are somebody getting married, somebody is traveling out of India. They have, and they're all very informed patients. They read internet, everything. Most of the times, patients when they come to me, they ask me lots of questions, about the dry eye and recovery and a lot of things. So they are very informed patients to understand. So it's important to understand their needs and expectations. Ocular examinations, suitability decision making about the type of procedure, etc. This is part of the first 6 months of the fellowship. So this is just a decision making which we follow in our institute about deciding different procedures for different types of refractive errors and based on their corneal conditions. So phase 2 involves observation of refractive surgery, the OR. So as I said, first phase was just observation and workup and etc. Phase 2 now starts with their proper surgical observation of refractive surgeries in the OR with their mentor. So here you can see Dr. Shri Ganesh is operating and our fellow is observing this case. And so first, the second part is basically just observation of different procedures. Then comes the phase 3 wherein fellows are given hands-on supervised training. So this is all supervised, they do not do independently initially. And so they start with surface abrasions first because it is less complicated and easier surgery to perform. And then they are further upgraded to microkeratome and LASIK, wherein they again learn the procedure step by step. So first they learn the assembly part, assembly of the microkeratome, then suction application, then flap application. And for every stage as they are progressing, they are being basically monitored. They are monitored, and we also score them for their steps, for the completeness and efficiency of the steps. And finally, they get to do full case. The same way, femtolasic also is done in 2 parts. First, they learn the docking and then the full case. And smile also docking, then identification of planes. So they don't do a whole surgery in one go. They get steps, identification of planes, and then good extraction. Finally, the full case. So advantages of mentor training is probably because they learn the right way of doing things, right way of selecting the patient, decision making, preoperative workup, counseling, right way of performing surgery, and also post-operative care and patient management. So what happens is sometimes those who like to do short-term observation, right, just 2 days, 3 days, they go to a center and they think they learn basic or practice surgery. They miss on the post-operative part. They really don't know what are the issues that patients can expect in the post-operative period, the healing, sometimes, unhappy patients. So then they don't learn the algorithm to manage the post-op complications and approach to unhappy patients. So this is what they need to learn. Research is important because they understand in depth how to report the outcomes, etc. So it's important for the subject. So mentored fellowships versus observerships is like mentor fellowship comes with a user guide and it guides you step by step, but with observerships and short-term approach, you learn bits and pieces and then you have to combine all these jigsaw puzzle and make sense out of it. So to conclude, there is a growing demand and patient awareness about refractive surgery. It is important to include refractive surgery as part of the undergrad ophthalmic curriculum, and supervised trainings and fellowships in reputed refractive surgery centers with well-known mentors is probably the best way to negotiate the learning curve in refractive surgery. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. It gave a good insight. So these fellowship which you said purely because the refractive surgery is not there available. Once a surgeon who is a MS, who has certified ophthalmologist, if he does a LASIK surgery and something goes wrong, so is he legally liable now in today's COPRA setup that you did not have a refractive training and you were still doing LASIK and it gave a complication?
I think in India it is still allowed that if you are
any MS can do.
Any MS can do. But elsewhere, I'm aware, like in UK, Ireland, because we get lots of trainees from outside India, from US, UK, Middle East also. They need a certificate. They need to be certified to do refractive surgery. And
that is required by the law.
By their law or the
Just to answer Dr. Satyaji's question, if it goes into a medical legal case.
Yeah.
There was a case where he had mentioned that we have done a fellowship from so and so institute, where the judge has mentioned that if it is within your MS curriculum,
then you can do the surgery. If it is not the fellowship, basically nothing works in the code, only the MCI, not the NMC.
That's why we were specifically asking about refractive, because refractive surgery is not there in the MS
No,
curriculum.
it is there.
No, no.
It is there.
What is happening, madam?
At least it was not there in our time.
At present, this thing in private institutions and medical colleges, the surgical exposure to the refractive surgery is very, very less. Though it is there as a curriculum theoretically, but practically, none of the institutions, even if they have, I don't know if they are really giving it to the students. So they are asking for practical exposure, not a theoretical curriculum.
But when you the private institute, even if they don't have that curriculum, they are allowed to go to school. Like it's a collaborative teaching. So that is what they believe. And if it is in the textbook, in the MS, whether it has come in CASP, AIO, whatever we follow, no? If it is in the MS curriculum, then you can be a safe surgeon. Then it was
Now, NMC itself, in its recent rules which has changed, they are now, if they don't have that machines, then they direct the colleges that to go observe, learn and come back.
Yes.
So there is an outbound learning which the NMC is directing now, which you have to do.
And now you'll be shocked, like I have been traveling, no? I have seen that the RIO Patna, Dr. Satya, they have lesson machine. Last year they had done 698 cornea surgery, including laser surgery. Then Vinto, RIO Bangalore, they have a lesson machine. So these have become available. I know 2 other centers, 2 other RIOs, very soon they're coming with a lesson machine. Because it has come to your MS curriculum now.
Of
So
course.
it has become important that this institution must have the machine that we use to
It's good to have all the machines in every teaching institution. So the students will get the maximum exposure. So thank you very much, Dr. Kasturi and Dr. Sheetal. Thank you very much. So we come to the end of the cornea and refractive surgery.